Whether your taste runs to the classics like this great Lincoln I'm driving right now, or to modern sports cars or veteran cars, you'll find it all right here in the Audrain Museum Network. And as a subscriber, you'll really get to know what it is that we're doing and become a part of our family, which is growing fast. If you're not a subscriber, hit that button right now, hit the bell icon to be reminded when we put up great content, and join us here on the network. Thanks. Henry Ford was a fellow who did not get along very well with partners. He really liked to run his own show, and so it's not surprising that when he bought the Lincoln company from the Leland brothers, they had originally planned to have the Leland stay on as management of the company while Henry Ford owned it. He was looking for a way to have an upper-end car, but he had no interest in upper-end Fords. He realized that the Ford brand needed to be very much a car of the people. And however, the Lelands and Henry Ford didn't get along for very long, and they were out only a few years after Ford bought the company in 1922. Now, this did offer an opportunity, however, for Edsel, Henry Ford's son. He figured, well, I can just give Lincoln to Edsel and keep him quiet and keep him out of my hair with all of his nonsense about development and improving the Model T and perhaps replacing it with a new model. And so Edsel Ford dove headfirst into Lincoln. And one of the great gifts that Edsel had is great taste. Great taste and style. And he knew that Lincolns were good cars, but they really couldn't compete on a level playing field with Cadillac and the other premium brands because they were frankly boring looking. And also they didn't have great engines either. But so he worked in improving Lincoln and bringing it into a more stylish age, working with the best coach builders in the country and really encouraging them to do their best work in the Lincoln chassis and developing what then became a very good straight-eight engine in the Model L. However, this car that I'm driving right now is a 1931 Lincoln Model K. The Model K is a straight-eight engine, puts out 120 horsepower, and is a very refined car for its time and age. And however, it was also launched in the middle of the great cylinder wars. So everyone was going for V12s and V16s, and Lincoln still had their 8. And so what could be done? This is the ultimate development of the Lincoln straight-eight. They fitted a different carburetor, twin Venturis, raised the compression ratio, and raised the power thereby, and also delivering power in a better, more linear way from low revs, which is always good for a luxury car. And it began to really get some attention and certainly kept Lincoln in the view of the market until the 12 could be readied, which was the following year. They kept the 12 and the V8 marketed together, the KA and KB, from 1932 onwards. And while Lincoln certainly never outsold the Cadillac, Cadillac was the most popular V12, and of course they had the great 16. It was quite interesting that Lincoln stayed with the 12 after the war when Cadillac had abandoned it. And the 48 Continentals, of course, had the flathead 12, and Cadillac was looking forward into the future to the overhead valve V8, which Lincoln wouldn't get until 1952. But nevertheless, this is really a beautiful car. The coachwork is by LeBaron of Detroit, and it's quite elegant and very much the equal of any of its European competitors. It's hard to believe, but again, the customer that chose this Lincoln Model K would have been looking at a Rolls Phantom II, perhaps a Duesenberg, although of course much more powerful and more expensive car. Cadillac, certainly. A Mercedes, perhaps. Certainly a Chrysler Imperial. These are all really amazing cars, and I think that Lincoln's for a very long time has lived in the shadow of these other classics, not getting the kind of respect or attention that it really deserves. And I think that they're amazing cars, and certainly deserving of more attention and much greater respect. This is an engine that does not like to loaf, but you have to get going a bit before you can really use that third gear. But it's surprisingly pleasant on the road, and I think that for people that do tours, Lincolns are great tour cars. On these heavily crowned country roads, probably not the friendliest environment for this car, but again, when this car was new, it probably drove a lot on these roads, and the drivers of the time were conditioned to it. I'm not as conditioned as the drivers of the time, but nonetheless, it really is an enjoyable drive. The cabin inside is very simple, not a lot of fancy decoration, but just sort of tasteful elegance. A nice polished instrument binnacle and a nice high scuttle, but with a nice view of the great Greyhound over the radiator. There are a lot of cars of this age that are very enclosed and enclosing and sort of make you feel sort of trapped, letterbox windshields and things like that. This is not the case with this Lincoln. It's got a great view of this wonderful day, and I think that I have to thank Henry Ford for being the curmudgeon that he was and chasing off the Lelands, because Edsel Ford got to finally stretch his creative legs, and this Lincoln is a great example of what Edsel Ford accomplished. It's a terrific classic drive.